Thank you so much for being here. Just want to get started today by welcoming everyone, and I'd love to welcome you to share in the chat what is your greatest strength. It can be as a tech host if you want, would love to see that. Um, and what does that feel or look like to presenters and participants when you are being a tech host? So, Karen, welcome. I see you just popped in. I love that you had your name added, not the tech host today. I have to tell you, that's brilliant. I can't tell you how many times I shut off my camera and write that in the chat when I'm with groups who always know that I am a tech host, right? So that's great. Love to find out in the chat, what is your greatest strength and who do you serve? Just be thinking about that because I'm going to ask again in a few minutes. I want you to be thinking about your role because that's going to help you when you're making decisions about how you're going to set your Zoom settings. So, for those of you who are just joining, thank you so much. It is September 26, 2024, and we're going to be covering Zoom settings. Now, I am anticipating that there aren't a lot of people in this meeting today because I've told a lot of people this is a bit grueling. This session could last 2 hours or so, depending on how deep we get into the settings. We will be going into the back end of Zoom and covering those settings, not so much the front end. The front end is when we cover most of those in our sandboxing sessions, but I've let people know that this recording is going to be available so you can come back and watch it anytime. All right, so would love for you to use that annotation tool. There should be a little tool on the screen, a little green mark. If you could consider where you just came from, how are you feeling as you come into this meeting? Now, if you just use that little, click that little annotation button, a little window will pop up. And just use the check mark tool. If you use that check mark or heart or star, I have hidden the names of the annotators, so we don't need to know how you're feeling. But if you can just click on that mood meter, how you're feeling. But if I do like to warn folks that if you use the arrow, we will see who you are. So, yeah. And I love this tool as a way to find out from folks that have just dialed in. How are you feeling? How are you coming in today? What does that feel like for you? And that gives us a bit of a sense, especially if you've got a lot of people in the room, or if you're just kind of want to understand how people are feeling as they come in. If you are, especially if you're in a work meeting, this can be helpful without people unpacking their backpacks. So good. It looks like we're all in the upper right-hand corner. Oh, we've got a grateful there. That's good. So what this is at the top, it's more about your energy. So if it's high energy, if it's above, if it's red or yellow, if it's low energy, it could be blue or green. And then on the left, it's a bit negative, and then on the right, it's more positive. And so if we're all in the yellow and green, I would say we're doing great. If we start to get in the blue or the red, if you're peeved, you're going to be really peeved by the end of this session because you're going to be like, oh, I shouldn't say that. You'll probably be I think many of you might end up a little drained. And I don't mean to like put that out there, but so let's go ahead and keep that energy up. I'm sorry to put that on all of you. I just look at this session and go, oh, there's just a lot of information that we're going to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of this real quick and then also clear all the drawings so that we can go to that next slide. And that takes a little bit as a tech host because you've got to open up the annotation and then you've got to close it. So the purpose today is to practice a mindset of wonder while we explore, test, and even try to break things. So we'll have a little bit of sandboxing at the very beginning. I'm going to cover some burning questions. If you have something that's coming up soon and you want an answer or just a burning question before we dive into the Zoom settings, I'm sure we'll answer all your questions about Zoom settings once we get there. But before we do these Zoom settings, I want to talk just a little bit about your role and how do you set up a quick decision model? Because when I say, here's the Zoom setting, here's what I use and why, you may have a different why, and that's okay. You don't have to follow my Zoom settings. You might have a different reason, but you might be wearing different hats. And so you'll have to consider that when you set up your Zoom settings. And then we'll have a quick wrap up. And so the payoff really is that hopefully you will leave knowing the Zoom settings are how you like them or where to find them if you need to change them. And then so I'll just start out. What are your burning questions? Feel free to either type them on the screen or type them in the chat. During your Zoom-based yoga class, the teacher's internet went out. She froze and was dropped from the call. Then you were made the host, your classmates, and you were curious as to how the new host was chosen. We think it was because of alphabetical order. No, so that's a great question. Does anyone have the answer? I love to ask that first to see if anybody else has the answer. Why was Kathy chosen? Because they knew she was a keener and she would be really good at that. So could have been alphabetical. It could have been when you showed up in the room. I have no idea. I have no idea. That's an excellent question. If you weren't already co-host, my answer would be is that it unless Zoom has a question. So that's an excellent question. Now I want to know. And so I'm going to put that in my notes to ask Zoom. And maybe we'll have the answer by the next session, but that's a great one to ponder, isn't it? It is a mystery. So while we're setting up today, what you see here is a screenshot that I took right before this session where I am on the left. So you may want to put your Zoom window on the left and then open up Zoom on your browser. And I believe if I type in zoom.us into the chat and you click that, if you are not in the US, it should automatically go over to whatever country you're in. I know that for the Canadians, they click my US button and it goes to Canadian Zoom. And you're going to want to set up both of your windows as we're working today. So the Zoom on the left, me, and I'll be sharing my screen. That's what you'll be seeing is my shared screen. I couldn't get a screenshot of that. And what that shared screen is going to look like is on the right. That's going to be yours though. And I don't want you to mix them up because you might be clicking on the Zoom screen saying, how come I can't change my settings? So you want to have your settings right along with mine so you can follow along. And so the right there are a few things I want to call attention to. If you have your window open wide enough, you can see this left-hand column where it has settings and where I've circled settings here. If for some reason you open up your Zoom window and log in and it's not there, you just need to widen your screen a bit. So you're going to have to do a little bit of juggling to get both of these windows up on your screen. So that means not watching Zoom full screen, making it a different window, and then opening up Zoom in another window. There's also some little arrows at the top here, along the top where I believe it says like general, meeting, recording, calendar, auto conferencing, Zoom setup. There's all these pages left and right. And so just make note of where I'll be during this session so that you know what page we're on. And there's also at the very top, there's a search settings. So this is going to be excellent if really fast before a meeting, you know you have to change a setting, but you can't remember where it is. You can type in that search settings bar, and that will help you get closer to it. So you don't have to go through all of these settings. Now, if you started out in Zoom early on like me, there was one page of settings. Now I believe there's over a dozen. So if you can set up your screen, we'll get started in just a moment with that. I would love to know, just using your annotation tool, what is your role? And a few people said in the chat what they do, but some of you tech host for guilds, so go ahead and click tech host for creatives, maybe other creative classes. Maybe you tech host at work. And if you tech host at work, do you tech host because you're supporting a group at work? That's your role. Or are you sort of the tech host on the team you're in? You might be part of the team. You might be a visual practitioner. You might be tech hosting and graphic recording. You might be tech hosting and being a participant in the group. Or do you do it all? Some of you actually tech host for all of these instances and you're for hire. So that's going to be important when you start to listen to these Zoom settings, because again, I'm going to explain some of them. Some of them I'm just going to say, just set it and forget it. And if you have a question, of course, unmute. But I'd love to be thinking about your role when you go to tech host. Now, why are these different? Let me give you an example. When it comes to recording, this is probably one of the main settings that you'll be thinking about. If you're tech hosting for creatives, if you're tech hosting for a guild or a group, the question you're going to want to ask them is, how do you want to share out the recording? And they're probably going to say, I don't know. And so you have to figure out what your workflow is going to be. The workflow might be we're going to have it on Zoom for 30 days if they've purchased extra space on the cloud, right? Or you can say, well, we can download it. Either you can download it or they can download it and upload it to a YouTube page that can be unlisted or listed, right? And so that's another workflow. They might be going to Vimeo. They might be putting it on a platform. If you're tech hosting for a creative that has their own Kajabi site, ask them, am I going to be recording? Are you going to be recording? And if you're recording, you're likely going to want to record in speaker view only. Okay. And then that allows just the person that you are spotlighting to be in the recording. And if they shift over to their document camera, that will be captured as well. So that's a common thing to be thinking about, that you're just recording for the speaker view. Now, because I am that person that kind of does it all, I record speaker and group. And the group could be really helpful at work if you want to show everybody who's on the screen, their reactions, all of that, and it'll also show the shared screen when that's showing up, then that could be the group recording. But just know that there are some differences to be thinking about in terms of what's your role and when would you want to use maybe a different when would you want to use a different setting than what I'm giving you? So what I tell you these settings are not just for me. We can also talk it through. What would you choose? For the most part, a lot of them are going to be the same, especially around security. So let's do this. Let's get into Zoom settings. So let me go ahead and share with you my Zoom screen. And so if you haven't already gone to zoom.com, zoom.us so far, you're going to go ahead and sign in. Now I'm already signed in, so you would sign in your username and password. And on the left here, this is where you're going to go to settings. If you don't see that, make your screen big enough so that you can. Now that I'm there, I can make it smaller and all of that will go away and hopefully optimize this a little bit better for all of you. I'm also going to close this little offer up here at the top. And I'm going to make sure I'm all the way to the left, which is AI Companion. It looks like it's funny. I thought at first they were in alphabetical order, but they're not because they have audio conferencing here. If you see something different on your screen, let me know. It might mean that we're working for some reason, the platform looks different on different browsers. I don't know. So with this AI companion, and just so I let you know, we're going to go through these together. I spot checked the settings because I didn't want to have to do this whole thing twice, but I spot checked things. But some of these are absolutely new in the last week. So hopefully you're all on the latest version of Zoom. So when it comes to meeting, and let's see, it looks like this is still, it's still showing up there. There we go. Oops. Boy, that's very, very tender there. All right. So I like it. It gives you, now Zoom tells you a lot of information, like responsible AI is at the core of our generative AI capabilities. And then of course you can learn more about the AI companion. I use the AI companion very sparingly. I would probably use it a lot more if I were in a work situation. But some cultures, some work situations don't let you use AI because they want people to go to the meetings, right? So in here, I do have it checked on that allow users to ask AI companion questions about the meeting. This is going to be for tech savvy folks. Some people don't even know how to use this, so I'm not too worried about it. So I'll go ahead and turn that on, but I don't automatically allow access when the meeting starts. And who do I share that with? I would say only when they join. So it's only the people that come in that can have that. And I just have that set. We can always change these later on if you want to be able to give AI to folks. Now, I've never seen in a guild situation that we're using AI. Do any of you guild folks, are any of you using AI in your work? I'm guessing not. Is anybody else using AI as their tech hosting? Okay. And what that's helpful for is that AI actually creates an overview of what happened during the meeting, and it goes along with the recording. And you can choose to share that or not. You can even go in and copy and paste and edit and do all kinds of things with it if you want. So that's that meeting summary with AI Companion. Again, I have it on, but I don't have these automatically turned on because I was in a meeting one time where we talked about the people that were going to be in the meeting and what we thought that they needed. And then when they left, we talked about where we felt that they could use more support. Now, nobody loves to hear themselves being talked about. It wasn't like we were like bagging on so and so and what they wore that day. It was more about getting prepared and the end. Well, all of that was in the AI. And the person that I was working with had all of these checked, and it automatically sent all of that out there. Oh my goodness. That was not an easy thing to recall. So again, we didn't say anything so bad that, we ruined relationships, but it was enough to go, this is a really important thing to make sure that you don't have all of these automations on, right? So of course, I'm the meeting host and I want to be the person that sees the automation if someone turns it on. So what's great about, again, Zoom is that there's all these little icons next to something. That little I means information. You can select this option to edit a summary before sharing it with others. So that's great. If I want to turn it on, I can, and then I can go through and edit it and then send that out. And then auto delete meeting summaries. It's interesting. I'm going to go ahead. It says it's locked by admin. If it were up to me, I would go ahead and delete that because I don't need it taken up more in the cloud, right? But right now, if for me, it's locked by admin. And again, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to unmute. Okay, use screen share content with OCR. OCR is optical character recognition. And so this is telling me to use this to generate more accurate and relevant AI companion results. What that means is it might be that the AI is listening and then it's also seeing a screen. And if it has any questions, it will refer to what's being said on the screen. Probably really great if the AI is having a hard time understanding certain accents and maybe someone says an acronym or something really fast. That's probably what that's helpful for. Again, it all depends if you're using AI. I'm leaving all of these on because these are set to what Zoom sets. So I'm not going to just shut them off because I'm scared. I'm not using it. I'm just going to leave it on so that if I do decide to use this functionality, all of these are already set for me. So use meeting chat messages. Again, I'm not using any of the AI companion, but I'm leaving this on. Okay, so recording, and this is brand new, this meeting coach. So when you're recording with AI Companion, um, there are recordings that will do highlights, chapters, and next steps. And I did set this up so that I could see that. And I felt, because I don't always just say, here's the Zoom link, and then you can watch the recording. But in some cases where I'm in a hurry and I want to get people the information fast, I will. There's a little section along the bottom that breaks things down into chapters, sort of like how YouTube does it sometimes. I found that really helpful. Now, in terms of this meeting coach, looks like this will give us feedback on how we're talking. I'm amazed by how much Zoom has put into this. So this is really interesting that there's a meeting coach in there. I'm definitely going to be checking that out the next time I record a session, maybe even after this one. All right, so clips. I'm actually going to turn this on. Nope, it's not letting me because it's locked by admin. It's so new that they haven't released it yet, but now we've got a sneak preview. Those clips that I talked about along the bottom, these are going to generate those titles and descriptions and tags using the AI companion. So that's great. I'm going to let it do that. And then if I need that feature in the future, I'll have it. And again, I'm just turning these on so I can get used to that before I start sharing that with other users. And then, of course, whiteboard content generation with AI Companion. I don't use the whiteboard in Zoom. I actually use third-party tools. So I'll just keep this on in case for some reason I'm tech hosting for a client and they want to use this feature. Yeah, so Karen's saying that her page has a team chat category before the recording tab. Interesting. And this is oh, okay, in here. Okay. team chat. And I have seen that in another place. I'm hoping we're on the same page, but there might just be a difference. Any other questions about AI Companion before we move on? And in terms of team chat, you can have teams. It could also be, who's in the meeting is chatting. You can have chatting before and after your meeting. And so it might be that in the team chat that you can keep that chat going before you hit the recording. That might be what that's referring to. We'll see if that shows up somewhere else. All right, data and storage, real-time data center location. Now, this may or may not be applicable to you if you aren't working with groups all over the world. It looks like I have turned off India, China, and Taiwan. And I did that at some point, I'm sure, because there are a few countries of people who dial into my calls, and not one of these, but some of my larger calls, and they've been stealing my work. And so these were the countries that I was identifying them in. And so that's why I shut those off. Poland's not on there, but Poland's a big one too that comes in and steals my work. So that's just a personal thing. It's not like all of them are doing that to everyone. That's just been my experience. And so what that is it's the data center. It's allowing people to come in. Yeah. Okay. Selecting all data centers to provide the best experience for participants. Yeah. From all regions. And so, yeah, that was just because I was trying, it was a security thing for me, but you can certainly have all of those turned on. And of course, they have United States for me because I'm using this platform in the United States. All right. So feedback to Zoom. I like this. This is the button that comes up at the very end that says, did you have a good time or a bad time on Zoom? And then it might, if you say bad, it'll ask you, was it audio quality, video quality, those types of things. So I put that on there. It usually is random. It's not every single time, but they might have made it every single time now. It's also something as a user, you can just close the window and not answer it if you don't want to. All right, so show join from a room feature in Zoom meetings in the Zoom client meeting list. I have this turned on. Yeah, so I think this is working more from, yeah, if anybody knows what that is, I always just defer to whatever it's set at, but I don't know specifically why I would use this because I haven't. And then hide potentially sensitive information on mobile task switcher. Again, I do this because when people are dialing in with their phones and I don't know who they are, it's more of just a security measure. So we're rolling through these pretty quickly. We're going to definitely get a lot of pages in meeting. So general, let's see, show invited Zoom meeting without linked third-party calendar. I just turned that on. Let's see, hide meeting invites from users external to my account. I'm not really worried about that because I keep my Zoom link I only send it to people who are using it. So yeah, I'm not too worried about the third-party calendar thing because I don't really use it. So security, require that all meetings are secured with one security option. So that is automatically turned on by admin. And so they're not letting us change the setting at all. It's even telling us that there. And these are the things that I do. So I have the waiting room on this part, but I also can change it in Zoom. You can enable or disable the waiting room. And let me just pop in what that looks like from your participant list when you are, and you can open up the participant list right now, but it won't show you unless you are a host or a co-host. But I did take a screenshot earlier, and you'll see these are the settings that I have in my participant. You look in the chat, you can download this image. I have mute all everyone upon entry. And that's because if someone's teaching or someone's talking and someone comes in and there's a siren going off and the kids are crying and the dog is barking, that's not part of the recording. It's like, oh, guess who just showed up? The people that have their mic on. So I just mute everybody upon entry. I enable the waiting room until I'm ready to have a class like this. And because we're coming and going, I've disabled the waiting room now. And then I have that going back up under mute where it says play and join leave sound. I have that on until the first person shows up. And then I turn that off because I think it's really annoying. And then under the allow participants to unmute and rename and start video, I allow everyone to be able to do that. In some circumstances, you would change that for different reasons. So, but those are my current settings. And again, it looks like I've got everything checked here. I don't edit any of these options. So everyone will go into the waiting room. I make sure of that. I allow participants in the waiting room to reply to me. So I like to put a message out. If you were early today, you saw a message that said, hello and welcome to Zoom settings. We'll get started soon. And then I love it when people are alphabetical in the waiting room, because then I can look if I'm having to take roll for my client, then I can look and see who's there and I can start taking roll before they actually come into the room. That's a helpful thing to have. And then this is great. Place participants in the waiting room if the host or co-host are not present or that if they lose internet connection during a meeting. Now, this might be interesting to you, Kathy. If the person had this checked and there was no co-host or host, you all would have gone into a waiting room, and then what would have happened? Nobody would have known what to do. It's the person that's in control could then email everyone or message them in the waiting room and say, here's what's going on. Whereas, so in some cases, you might want to uncheck this just to let the people in the room figure things out themselves if they need to. So great for if you're in a working situation or if you want the meeting to go on, even if it's without you. And you can, of course, edit these options and you can change, like this is great. You can change from alphabetical to join order if you want to find out who is there first, right? So again, you can open that up and play with these different settings if you want, but these are the settings that I use. And then we'll see about customized waiting room. This is great. I love this. So this is where we really get to play with what images do we want to put in there? What do we want to say? I keep mine pretty general. I will tell you that I was working with a client one time and she said that, oh, we were just in the waiting room and it said something about lettering. We're not here for that. And so you can go in and temporarily change this if you have a client that wants you to. So that's helpful as well. So all of this is editable. Any questions there? Yeah, Firm.
Sorry, I was looking for the raise hand button.
Yeah.
Here under React. Yes, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, is that I think the bummer about customizing your waiting room is that after that meeting is over, like it doesn't automatically take it down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which is, I wish, whatever. It's something I'm sure that will be
Wouldn't it
changed.
be great if there was a toggle switch that said temporary? Or,
Yes, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
when
because
you
once
set
it,
up the meeting, can you
yeah.
also set up the waiting room? Yes, that would be a great
Okay, so it's not
request to
just
see.
me because we forget. It's like you don't go back in there and then you're hosting something else and you don't go in the waiting room and until somebody tells you that you forget. So anyway, so
That's brilliant. So, I would suggest making a trigger for yourself, or if you don't like that word, what's that acronym? If this, then that. If
yes,
that comes up and you find yourself customizing your waiting room in your account, then while you're doing that, before you hit save,
yeah,
go to your calendar, and the minute
yes,
after that, put on an alert that says change the waiting room in Zoom back to your original. And if you have to, take a screenshot of this
yeah,
so you remember what you had before, right? Because I can tell you, I will forget what this text says. I'll
yeah.
never remember that. I'll create a whole nother file. It'll have all of this in it, and then I could go back and change it. Thank you so much for bringing that up. That's such a great idea.
Thank you, thank you. That's
Yeah.
helpful.
Anyone else? Questions so far or comments about that? Because a waiting room, some people don't even use it. They're like, whoever shows up, we start. But if you're using a waiting room as a more formal way to let people in, or you're doing a tech check with your client and you want to have control of when people come in, yeah, this can be an important feature. I like to use a lot of these, if not all of these security features. So I make sure that there's a meeting passcode. I will tell you that when I set up my passcode, every single time, if you ever go back and look at all of the emails I've ever sent you, the passcode is the same every time. I set it myself. I don't let it do it an automatic generation. And I'll tell you why. Because I can't tell you how many times I've been tech hosting and someone will text me because they're on a phone or on a mobile device or something else and they can't get to their email and they're saying, "What's the passcode?" They are in the meeting, they pushed some button and it's asking for a passcode. And I don't have to go find it because I would get flustered and I'd have a heck of a time finding where this is. And I just rattle off the number. And I will tell you it's a 5-digit code. And the passcode is usually 6 digits. And so I did have one person. I love the red pen people in the world. They tell me what I'm doing. I had someone say, "There's not enough digits." And I said, "No, there's enough digits. It'll work." "No, no, there's always 6." And I go, "There are always 6, but you can have 5." And I mean, it was like, I don't want to argue with you, but thank you. I mean, I learned that mine was only 5. I just said, this is the number I'll always remember. So that's something you might keep in mind. You might have a passcode in your head that you always use. Now, does it happen frequently? No, but it happens enough that if it happens to be like your guest speaker, you better know that right off the top of your head. And so that's a little bit of a if then that. When I'm prompted to set up a meeting and I've got to put a passcode, I'll type it in there. Great. So the personal meeting, um, I don't use my personal meeting ID very much. I kind of treat my personal meeting as like a top secret room in a way, because if everyone had my personal ID and someone just thought, "Oh, I'm just going to pop in and see if Heather's there," or if they're clicking on a link that's out of an old email and they just accidentally click it and they show up in a meeting with me, so I rarely use that personal meeting ID. It's only when I might be on the call and I'd be like, "Oh, you want to meet right now? Boom, this is the fastest, easiest way to get to you," right? I know some people that they only use that because it's easy for them to remember. And they trust that nobody else is going to show up to the meeting but the one person that they're meeting at that particular time. So it's totally up to you. It's just a different way of working. And that's why I wanted you to think about your roles, and then require passcode for participants joining by phone. Again, that's why I do that. A lot of people will join by phone and they have limited access, of course, to chat. Sometimes they don't know how to turn on their video. They have their phone number. I don't know who they are. For me, it's a security thing. That's all. Embed passcode in the in the invite link. This used to not be there, which drove me nuts because I don't want people to have to type in the passcode. But if you are in a situation where you do want people to type in a passcode for an extra level of security, you would turn this off. Embed passcode, you would turn that off so they would have to type it in. But I like to leave it in so we could just get in smoothly. Only authenticated meeting participants and webinar attendees can join meetings and webinars. Now, because I have you sign up on my Kajabi site and I put the link that we're going to meet in the email that only goes to those who sign up, I have this unchecked. If you're using registration through Zoom and you don't want anybody else in that webinar or meeting except for those who registered in Zoom, you would check this. So again, this is another instance where your setting might be different than mine. All right. Anybody have anything to add or questions around that? Now, sign into Zoom and this authentication, again, I don't require any kind of authentication because I'm not using those registrations. I don't do a lot of webinars. When I tech host for webinars, I have all of that information coming from the client. And I'll just say this as an aside, when it comes to communicating, I want everything that gets communicated about a meeting or a class to come from the client. And here's why. When someone signs up for a class under a certain company name or a guild, they're expecting to see emails from that company name or guild, not from the tech host. Just this random person with this random name who they've never met before. So just want to keep in mind that when it comes to communications, I always love for that to come from the client. Now, I'll provide them with some example boilerplate emails if they need them that they can customize. But for the most part, I only want to be around during the live session if I have a tech check session beforehand, or if I'm needed in an emergency situation. If you're having any technical issues, here's our tech person. But that my name is put in the email, not she's your contact person. Go to her for all things. So I'm just bringing that up because when it comes to sending out links and that type of thing, I want that to all go through the client. All right, if waiting room is enabled, phone-only users will be placed in the waiting room. Absolutely. If it's not enabled, they will be allowed to join the meeting. So again, I want to treat them like everybody else so that I don't have to think about it. But remember to keep that participants window open so when a phone number does pop in, you can keep an eye on them. And if possible, I like to chat with them, private chat, and say, hey, who are you? Can I change your name from your phone number to your name? And I usually put something funny in there because it's like, because you don't want just anybody calling you later. Like if I sometimes I say things like that because otherwise they'll be like, I don't have time or I don't want to deal with this or they're driving, right? But I just like to put a little bit of humor in there so I don't sound like I'm being mean. All right, so block users in specific domains from joining meetings and webinars. I have this turned off now, but if for some reason you have somebody you just cannot get rid of, right? Like you've blocked them from social media, you've blocked them from your email, but somehow, how are they getting into my Zoom room? This is just another way to block them. Luckily, I don't have to block anybody to that level yet, so that's good. Okay, allow Zoom rooms to become the host if they join before meeting host and other participants. That might be it. It could have been Kathy that you joined before the meeting started. So guess what? When the host started up, you were the automatic person. Way to go, early bird. I still don't have the answer if that's true, but that might be a good one. Only authenticated users can join meetings. Again, I'm not using authentic. I can't say it. You know that word. I'm not using that feature, so I have these turned off. Again, you might have them. You might be using the registration feature, so you might need those on. Okay, schedule meeting. I like to have all videos on unless you are away from your desk, caring from someone, eating, or just having a bad hair day and can't be seen, then you can turn it off. But I like to have them all on, again, for a security measure. It creates a sense of community and it helps me know who they are. But again, if people want to turn theirs off, they can. But this is at the very beginning, it's already up. I do like to put both telephone and computer audio. In some cases, we're using the phone for different things, so that's important. And then allow participants to join before host. Me? Absolutely not. For a couple of reasons. One, there's some stuff I got to do before people get in there. But also, what happens is that if they join, um, I may not know they're in there. What if I accidentally sent out the wrong Zoom link and they're all in another place and I'm not there, right? So what happens is, and this happens for me, that when someone comes and joins a meeting before I'm there, I get an email that tells me that they've joined. And that tells me one of two things. One, oops, I'm late for a meeting because I'm not there yet, or I'm in the wrong place, or they got an email and accidentally clicked the link. So I know who my button pushers are. That's a good tool too. But yeah, I don't allow them to join before me. And it says here, disable the following waiting room option, place participants in the waiting room if the host and co-host are not present or if they lose internet connection. So perfect. Yeah. So I disable it for all those reasons. Enable continuous meeting chat. So I have turned this off because I have found people chatting with me before or after a meeting that I scheduled, and I didn't get the chats. For some reason, I didn't get them. And so we got in there and they're like, how come you weren't talking to me? How come you weren't responding to my chats? And I was like, there are so many other ways that people can contact me via email or other ways, but Zoom chat is not another platform that I want to be communicating with people. So that's me. You may feel differently. And it might be that you want people to be talking about whatever the subject is before and after, and you want them to have that kind of access. But I would say to you, ask yourself, is it a tool that your group is going to use? And you all agree to use it, because otherwise it's still this continuous, well, do I check my email or my social media or over here to have this conversation? So just be mindful that if you turn that on, you might be opening up another venue that people may or may not be familiar with. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So allow Zoom rooms to start meeting with host key. Let's see. I don't use a host key. And so I have this turned off. Yeah. The administrator has locked this setting. Okay. So yeah, it's been locked. All right, enable personal meeting ID. Again, this is that if you're using the personal meeting ID, I have that on, but I only use it when I want to use it. And then this is saying, do you want to use it all the time? No. Do you want to use it for instant meetings? I should probably have this turned on, but I still want to have that little bit of control. And then adding the watermark. So adding the watermark, oops, this is about really making sure that people's content, that they get credit for it, right? Or that someone's not going to steal content. So this could be really important if you are sharing a patented idea, you probably have NDAs in place, stuff like that. Or in instances where you want to add a watermark, so if someone's giving a presentation, they get credit for that presentation. If this is people sharing their screen because they want to see what's there, I have mine turned off because it's really annoying. It covers up the whole screen, and you can do single instance. That's new, somewhat new, but in that case, it's like the person that's speaking and sharing, it'll show who gets that credit, and then it can go away. So really, that's up to you if you're working with groups that want that. Now you know where to find it, and just if you need to come back and search, you can search the word watermark. All right. Mute participants when they join a meeting. That's what I do. I love to mute them just to make sure that there's not all that extraneous sound, especially in calligraphy sessions where the teacher is doing this beautiful work. They don't want to hear, an ambulance is right in the middle of their letter if someone comes in. Upcoming meeting reminder. Now, again, this is an instance where I don't use this, but if I ever do in the future, I want it turned on. And so what happens is if you are in a reoccurring meeting, like you're always going to meet with this group on Tuesdays or whatever, before the meeting is over, it will show when the next meeting is. So that can be a convenient. And again, I don't get scared and say, I don't know what that is, turn it off. I leave things on because I'm relying on the platform to kind of teach me what this is because I might need it later. So meeting templates, again, I have this on, but I don't use them. You might have templates that you use on an ongoing basis. In meeting basic. Okay, so I don't require media encryption. So I have that turned off. Yep, it shows that they require it, but I don't. Um, it's funny. Does anybody know why you would have that turned on or why they have that turned on? Okay, I'm going to take a screenshot and look back into it because I might have been thinking that I didn't want to keep anyone from getting in, but now I'm going to look into it and see what more we need to do there. All right, meeting chat. So I have that turned on. I am fine with everyone emailing each other or messaging, chatting with each other privately or to me. I'm okay with that. Now, in some instances, like I'm in a weekly coaching session where our coach wants us to be totally focused on a process, and it's a fast moving process. This isn't like a creative thing and we can do whatever we want, where it's like I'd kind of like to ask so and so if they got, if they have this supply or whatever. This is like we are so focused. So she only lets us chat with her. That's it. So that's one instance where someone might want it to just be the host and co-host. But for me, I want everybody to have the freedom to be able to do that. There's some people who say, no, I don't want them to lose focus. Don't let them chat with each other. That's fine. I guess I'm not that big of a control freak, so that's fine. Allow users to save chat. I allow everybody to save the chat if they want it. But again, if you don't want people to have whatever that chat was for whatever reason, you can turn that off. And then allow participants to delete messages in meeting chat. Absolutely. If you write something publicly that you meant for someone else, I want you to have the right to be able to delete that. And I know, you know, sometimes it's come in handy for me because I will have say like, here's what you need for this session, and I'll type it all out because the teacher told me that. And then they'll say something like, before I share with you what you need for this session, I'm like, "Ooh, I need to recall that," because for some reason that person wants them to focus. Or I might be like, "Oh, and I need to add 3 more things, but a bunch of people have already chatted and I don't want it to be a sub chat, so I'll just remove it and replace it." So if it's something me as a tech host, I found this to be really helpful and I let others do it too. So editing the messages in the meeting chat, that's fine. I'm good with that too. Enable the screenshot feature. I'm good with that too. You might not be. You might want to make sure people can't take screenshots for whatever reason. Could be intellectual property, whatever. Allow participants to use emojis. That's fine. You can say they can only use these 6 if you want. But some people really get into it, and some people don't use it at all. Some people don't even know it's there, right? So you can decide how much you want to get into that. I will say that when you are formatting a chat, and that means you're copying the chat. It's really that ugly OCR looking thing, and then you bring it into Word and make it whatever font you want it to make. If you allow them to use emojis, it will show up in that entire chat. And you have to either decide, am I going to just delete all of these, or am I going to find what emoji went with that comment way up there and copy and paste it? And I've done it both ways. But lately, I'm like, I'll just delete all those. It's not a big deal. But if it's something like, oh, this is a group and they're really supportive of one another and they've really used it a lot and it would show the feeling of the meeting, I would leave them in. So again, it's up to you. And you might be like, I don't format chat. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Leave it on. Meeting chat, direct messages. Again, these are those direct messages to other users. I don't know why that's different than the one above. And then auto save. So this is for auto saving on the host computer. I will say that I love this feature. I use it, and sometimes I save the chat anyway as a host, just because I know where to find it, that type of thing. Sound notification when someone joins or leaves. Again, I have it on here, but I can turn it on or off once I'm in Zoom. And it looks like I have play sound for host and co-host only. That's interesting. I thought it would have been for everyone. Let's see. Yeah, that's actually not true because I heard a couple of ding dongs today, so I don't know why it's showing that. But I'll leave it as host and co-host only because honestly, um, if I forgot to turn that off or for some reason I can't get to it, I don't want to have to listen to the doorbell. It used to be that everybody, oh, that's who it's for. Everybody would hear it. That's not just who's coming in. This is who would hear it. Everyone would hear that. If you turn it to hosts and co-hosts only, then the guests won't hear it, and I don't think it's in the recording. So host and co-host only is just for you. That's good. And then when someone joins by phone, ask to record their voice to use as the notification. That's really interesting because it used to be here it says announce. Okay. It used to be that they would do that and it would come into the meeting and they would say their name before they showed up. And even though I have this checked, I haven't heard that lately. So I don't know if there's another setting somewhere else. I'm going to leave that checked just because now I'm going to notice if it's working or not. Announce number of participants for dial-in participants. That could be helpful. So if someone's dialing in and they're like, there's 42 people in the meeting, it gives them a sense because they can't see anyone who's there. So I'll leave that on just for accessibility. Send file meetings via chat. So this is interesting. You can decide on what types of file types you want in there. I allow it to be any because I can't tell you how many times somebody thought it was cute to make this custom because they knew a bunch of file types and I couldn't upload the file or share what I wanted to share. This says 50 megabytes. Because it is the smallest. Let's see if it'll let me. I would normally choose 10. Yeah, and I'm going to leave it that way because nobody wants to download something that's really, really huge. And if someone says, oh, I can't download it, I'll say, is it really, really huge? And then I say, resize it or send it to me another way and I'll resize it because I don't know. Maybe it's me. I just think the world, we don't need big file sizes. And so many are big unnecessarily. All right. Display end of meeting experience, feedback survey. We talked about that up or down. And yes, I have mine set to random. So I don't have a lot of technical issues. So I'm not worried about it. I don't want people to be bothered by it. So I have it turned on, but I have it set to randomly. Now, co-hosts allow the host to add co-hosts. Co-hosts have the same in-meeting controls as the host, except we've learned that co-hosts can't make other co-hosts, and that's a security feature. So this should have a little caveat on it, but that's okay. We'll let Zoom slide. Meeting polls and quizzes. Love this checked because it allows me to do all of these, make it all accessible, right? This is where if you are someone who uses a lot of polls and quizzes and you want to change what's already here, then you're going to have to go back and check it every time you know that there's going to be a poll or a quiz. So just notice, I do like requiring answers to be anonymous. So I think that's important to be able to have that checked, but you may feel differently. Meeting survey. Allow host to present a survey to participants once a meeting has ended. So that could be helpful afterwards. I haven't used that feature much. I usually just use email if I want to get feedback from my folks, or I do it in the meeting. And it looks like you can add a specific survey and you can create your own survey. So if you want to make sure that every time someone gets a survey after a meeting, this is a great feature. And then I'm just going to take a picture of it because I thought that was interesting. And then who could participate, everyone in the meeting, and this is in that survey. So, and exclude co-hosts and co-hosts from taking the survey. That's helpful too, because it's like you don't need that data in there. All right. Show raised hand in toolbar. So this is interesting that I don't have that checked. Huh. I don't know why I don't have it checked. I think it's because, does anybody have that checked on theirs? I wonder if it was factory off. If you don't have it checked, then it was probably factory.
No, but
Karen.
I, I just, having seen that, I know that if I've wanted to raise my hand, I'm like, okay, now which button is it under? La 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 la. So if the raise hand is right there, I can just
Mm.
go, there it is. There's my question. You'll see my hand up.
All right. So for those of you who don't
But,
have it checked, that means there's going to be more raised hands. And if that's part of how you work, that could be really important.
mhm,
So
I'm,
I love that you're taking it, Karen, from the user experience
well,
because we could say, oh, that's great. Let's do that. But then from the tech hosting experience or from the presenter experience, maybe they don't want people raising their hands and all
but
of that.
the tech host is going to see those hands, you know,
Right.
the presenter is not necessarily going to need to pay attention to that.
Right.
It's like,
Correct. But it depends. That's right. And so that could go either way, right? The presenter might want the tech host to moderate, or the presenter might say, I want to be able to answer questions, but if they're not looking for the raised hands, then you have to tell them,
mhm,
if you don't want me moderating, here's where to find the raised hands.
yep, yep.
Yeah. So this is I love these kind of points because it's like, okay, this kind of breaks up the monotony of settings, right? So we can decide how we want this. And I've had mine turned off for so long that if I turned this on and then forgot that I turned it on, I'd be like, how come everybody's always raising their hands? Right? So many of you already know I like to say if you have a relevant, timely question, unmute. And if not, type your question in the chat. I like to work that way. If I were facilitating a class where we wanted a lot of sharing and answering and who knows the question to this, I would have this feature on. So I think this is about, the functionality and the style, but I'm going to think about this one. I'm going to take a picture of it too. I'm going to think about this one because I really want to be more accessible and I want it to be easier for folks. But at the same time, I have to think about either myself or the presenter and how they prefer to work.
I would think you could tell them, hit the raise button. If you don't have time, it's right away. I have a question,
Hmm.
and I can
quickly write to you in chat and
Yeah,
what's your question? You
exactly. There's
can
so
figure
many ways to use that and to instruct people.
yeah.
Yeah, good. Love it. Show Zoom windows during screen share. So I have that on. It's funny that it says that shows Zoom windows. Does anyone know what that actually means? I think I have it turned on because it's like I don't want to not see something I think I should be seeing. And it's funny because when I'm sharing, I can't see my own Zoom window. So I feel like it's kind of a funny, it's not worded correctly. So that's why I don't want to mess with it. Right? Because when I'm sharing, all I see is what I'm sharing. I see my entire screen, everything that's on it, but I don't see the Zoom screen. Like that goes away, and then I see all of you participants in a totally different window. Yeah.
Is that setting for the participants? Meaning, if you were to share your Zoom window, would they still be able to see the other participants in the room?
I
Versus
think
just,
that's more about how you're viewing. Like you can view the gallery, you can view the shared screen, you can view the speaker. That's a great question. I think that this is not worded clearly.
agreed.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave it on because otherwise it's going to function differently for me.
And I'm wondering, I do this thing where I provide a hybrid, um, but I'm at church and I just have to start, we start the meeting and I can, once somebody joins, I can't
Mhm.
see the church setting. And I don't know how many times I've said, am I pointing you in the right direction? Can you see anything? Because I can only see their faces. So
Right.
I'm going to put this on like this. And with the next time I have a church service, I want to see if I can see the Zoom screen, which would include the church or wherever I'm aiming at
Yeah.
the participants. That
Excellent.
will
So
be my,
did you have it turned off already?
oh, it was off. Yeah, I never noticed it. Yep.
Excellent. Get back to us and let us know, Karen, and then we'll know. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Screen sharing. Let's keep moving. Allow hosts and participants to share their screen or content during meetings and webinars. Of course. Now, why wouldn't we do that? That could be a security thing because we know that um, participants can come in, Zoom bombers can come in and screen share. Might be that we never screen share for whatever reason, but I'm going to leave that on. How many participants can share at the same time? So I have it as one participant because if not, then anybody could do it, right? Um, I don't know, but I think we can change it on the front end, but I'm not sure. Let's keep reading. Multiple participants can share simultaneously and then all screens mode. So no, I just want one person to share at a time. I'm not in an instance where we're all sharing screens to compare things at this point. If I had some special meeting that I knew that that was needed, then I would turn it to another one. All right. And it's saying remote support. If it's enabled, you can't do it anyway. And then who can share? I say all participants here and then I have host only in terms of who can interrupt. So that way a participant doesn't interrupt. I don't know about all of you, but when we first came into, when we first, like at the beginning of the pandemic, when everybody fled to Zoom, that share button that's green, I can't tell you how many people come in and share their screen because they saw a green button and they just pushed it. It's like, those are my button pushers. And it would be like, why are you sharing your screen? And they didn't know because they had no idea they'd push the button. And then I'd turn it off and then they do it again because they saw a green button. They see a green button and they think they have to go. I swear it's like driving, right? They see green, they go. So this setting will show up on the inside of Zoom when you go to that little arrow next to the share screen button. This shows exactly, it says advanced sharing options and it for me and it shows exactly this. Who can share? All participants. Who can start sharing when someone else is sharing? The host only. Again, and if you're working in a team setting and anybody you want anybody to share, then that's fine. You can make it all participants, but you can also toggle that on the inside of Zoom too. Screen sharing presenter view. Allow hosts and participants to use presenter view while screen sharing. I think that's fine. I want people to be able to see me and what I'm sharing in case I pick something up and show them in using being able to use both cameras is really the essence of that. And then disable desktop screen sharing for meetings that you host. When this option is on, users can only share selected applications and files. This option may not be applicable to users using web clients. Okay, that's fine. So I have it turned off, and it's kind of like a negative, right? Disable or enable. It's sort of like, wait, disable, so turn it off. So now it's on. Way to go, language. Both of these are like that. So I have these turned off because I do want desktop screen sharing. For me, I want to be able to share what's on my desktop. And so I can choose, is it a specific file or is it the entire desktop that I want to be able to share? And same for here too. That's fine. This is more of a security thing that you don't want to see someone's entire desktop. If I wanted to, I could click this on because I know that I have a couple of teachers who always share their entire desktop no matter what, because they can't in their heads think about what the participant sees is different than what they're seeing. So I just tell them, clean off your desktop, and then you can share the whole thing and you don't have to be embarrassed or worried that people are seeing what's on your desktop. Restrict external users from using remote control and remote support in a meeting. So it's interesting that there's no, it's locked by admin. That's why there's nothing here, because it's locked by the admin. I don't use remote control. Does anybody here use remote control or remote support? Okay. Some of you shook your head like you were scared of it. That was interesting. So I don't use it either. And I made a very conscious decision early on when I started Tech Host Academy, because I would have clients that say, do you do remote support? And I'd say, tell me what you mean by that. Because technically, they don't understand how it works in Zoom. And I realized very quickly that even as a host, you have limited abilities to support someone. You can't pick up a pencil and make them write. There's also some certain things in Zoom that they have to do. So I decided I'm going to teach them how to fish rather than having to do things for them and then them being frustrated when I can't, right? So while remote support could be really helpful if you are always working with the same client and they want it to be very smooth and they want you to do a certain thing, great. Turn this on, use it like crazy. But that's where, and you might want to adopt my approach, and that is teach the people that are presenting how to do a lot of their own things, because they may not know what the limit is. It's called setting boundaries. So, annotation. Allow hosts and participants to use the annotation tool to add information to shared screens. I love that. I will say that that little green annotation tool in the lower corner is always there, but you can always shut it off inside of Zoom if you go to more, and then you can disable annotation for others. And I do that sometimes when I'm working with groups that I don't know very well, because again, there's a little green button with a pencil and somebody will invariably just draw on it. And I have to say, as a tech host, when I go into meetings where I don't know the people very well, and we're in a really, really big meeting, like a couple hundred people, and they don't have that turned off, I'll go over and look at it and it's like, oh, I'm so tempted. I'm just so tempted to just draw a little thing. And I think, if I feel that way, how many other people feel that way? So yeah, so you might, depending on how you're working, I always just shut it off manually if I need to inside of Zoom, but back here I keep that on. Yep. All right, Whiteboard Classic. I'll tell you, again, I don't use Whiteboard. I use third-party tools, so you may have different settings than I do, but I keep it all on just in case, because I have had some clients where they're like, let's just use the whiteboard and go ahead and do it in your breakouts. And I'm like, well, it's a good thing I have it all turned on, because I wouldn't want to have to restart the meeting or change anything. So I keep all of these things on by default. And then I save as a PDF just because it's likely going to be either a smaller file or a file that most people can open. Okay, so again, remote control, I just turn that off completely. So I don't even make it an option with my client. Now, slide control, I do have that on, but I don't tell my client that, because I don't want to be the person to be like, next slide, click, next slide. Again, I want them to be able to do it. But if for some reason they're having a hard time, but I, for some reason, can advance it for them in a pinch, I have it on. I've only had to do that one time, and it was because my client had a pencil laying on their keyboard that was touching one key, and they couldn't use the other keys on their keyboard. And I didn't know that. So I was just like, I clicked it forward and they're like, it worked. I'm like, I did it. I'll keep doing it for you. Just let me know. It's like, it's there if I need it. Nonverbal feedback, allowing meeting participants to communicate without interrupting by clicking on the icons. Yes, no, slow down, speed up, coffee cup. I'll tell you, I don't have a lot of people using this. How many of you have seen those icons pop up, just like the raised hand? Slow down, speed up. I need a coffee break. That's what that means. Like, let's take a break. Yes or no. So when that comes up for me, that's when I private chat the person and say, did you mean to do this? Like, do I need to communicate this to the presenter? A lot of times they come back and say, no, I just saw the picture and clicked it. So I have it on just in case, because I never know when I have a client that tells me, that kind of thing. I was also working with a client that was doing a presentation on Zoom and recording, and I had my camera off and I was just there to coach her. And I used the speed up, slow down buttons to kind of coach her as we're talking. Meeting reactions, again, these are all those emojis. I leave them all on. If you want to turn them off, that's totally up to you. Allow removed participants to rejoin. Now, I find this very important. If I accidentally remove someone, now why would you do that? Well, I wouldn't, but I'll tell you why I remove people on purpose and let them back in. Now, in some cases, if there is I know it's a Zoom bomber, I will remove them. And when you click remove this person, Zoom will ask you, are you sure? And do you want to report them to Zoom? And you say, if they are a Zoom bomber, you say, yes, I want to report them to Zoom. And they won't even come back in as a participant under the same name. Like, they can't try to rejoin because you've already reported them. So very important. Do not report someone to Zoom if they're not a Zoom bomber. So make sure that that's unchecked. They make it so it can happen very quickly, so it's already checked for you. Now, here's the instance where I would let someone rejoin after I remove them. In some instances, I've had people that are so frustrated that they'll either unmute and yell, which that hasn't happened. Maybe they just talk very loudly because they're frustrated, or they start chatting in the chat to everyone, not just me, because they want attention and I'm trying to get them to focus to maybe restart, just leave and restart. And they refuse. I'm not leaving because I paid for this class. I'm like, but you don't understand. You can't do the thing you want to do because you need to restart your computer. And if I'm arguing with someone or trying to convince them in the private chat, and then they escalate that to the regular chat or the meeting chat, I'm going to kick them out. I'm going to let them rejoin after I've emailed them in the instructions that they need to do. Now, once they're out of there, they have no choice but to download the latest version of Zoom and restart their computer. Okay? And then they come back and everything's fine. Now, I've only had to do that like 3 or 4 times, but this button is important because if you do remove someone for whatever reason, even if it's a mistake, and then they can't get back in, that's a nightmare. So you want them to be able to get back in. Sorry for the long story. I loved it. I loved telling that story because I did get quite a bit of joy kicking that person out. And then once they came back and followed my instructions, everything was fine. All right. So show invitee list in participant panels. I need that as a co-host. So that's absolutely important for me. It might be that in some cases, we don't want that to show at all because of security reasons. So it says users invited to meetings on other platforms. Okay, I'm not quite sure why it would be different. If anybody has a reasoning, that's another wording thing I'm unclear about. All right. So allow users to change their name when joining a meeting. By disabling the setting, users will always use their name on profile page to join a meeting. So this is the case where once they get inside, they can change their name, but it's when they're joining, they can't. So why would I have this turned off? This is quiz time. Why would I have this turned off? Does anybody know the answer? Yes, go for it, Kathy.
Zoom bomber identities?
Yeah. And specifically, how would a Zoom bomber know someone else's name? Meetup. Meetup is the #1 place, and this is why this is happening, is that people don't have this checked off. You can go to Meetup, you can see who's going to be in the meeting, and if for some reason you can get the Zoom link, you can go in as someone else before. And that's how that was happening on all these Meetup, because this was checked. Now, once they're in the meeting, they can change it. So when Sally comes in and it's Harry's account, we're all like, "Hey, Harry." And she's like, "That's my husband." Of course, we know that. Would you like us to change your name? Or she can change her name as soon as she comes in. Now, some people don't like that and they'll say, "Oh, I couldn't change it before I came into the meeting," because they're used to that, because in some meetings they can, and some meetings they can't. So if you get into a meeting and they're like, "Well, I couldn't change it." It's like, it's okay. We don't allow that here for security reasons. And this is the reason why. So that's kind of, that, to me, that's an important one. To some of you, you may not care. So allow participants to rename themselves. That's where you do that here. Now, if you get as, yeah, Karen.
Just want to go back to that show invitee list. I'm wondering, like, when in the guild, we'll send out an email to everybody. This is, you're all invited. So that, I don't know how many people we have. So it sounds as if maybe, you're right, language is a problem here, but users who are invited to meetings on other platforms such as Outlook
Gotcha.
would also be shown on the list of people coming into the meeting.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So that's important that you can toggle that on or off, because you may not want to share who's going to be in that meeting.
right. I mean, I'm thinking mine's going to be just people that we invited for our guild, but that's not always going to be the case. Because okay.
Exactly. And then the question I would ask even further, because I don't use Google Outlook or Exchange to do this, but I would ask those who do to double check that their emails aren't being shown. So that might be an extra security there. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for that clarification. Way to go. You must have Googled quickly. Good. All right. So of course we want people to rename themselves unless you don't, right? Now I allow it here, but if you get a Zoom bomber, you can go into your securities and disable renaming. Just that one thing. If you are in a meeting and you're like, "I need to go in because we've got a security issue," you can hit that security button and you can say, "Don't allow people to change their name." And that's the kind of thing that we should be doing when the Zoom bomber comes in and changes the name and uses the chat, and then changes the name and uses the chat. Okay, good. But I do let them do it, because for the most part, my Zoom bombers, I've used all these other securities to keep them out. They're still very rare. The only time I've seen a Zoom bomber in the last year has been because of Meetup, because of that one button. All right, meeting timers, of course, allow participants to set meeting timers that can be seen and heard by everyone. That's fine. Sometimes I'm in a meeting and I say, "Hey, can somebody set up a timer?" That's great. Default meeting wallpaper, I don't have that, but maybe you do. Does anybody use meeting wallpaper? No, me neither. All right, advanced in meeting. I don't have a little scroll bar, so I don't know how far we are down. So again, reporting anybody to Zoom that you want to throw out, I'm going to make that an option. Breakout meetings. This is, of course, breakout rooms in meetings. Assign participants. Okay, so when scheduling, I don't always do that, but I want to have that option in case my client, because I have a couple of clients who give me a list of here's who I want in all the breakouts. I can do that beforehand. Broadcast message to participants. Absolutely. I should probably just shut off this voice, because I don't ever use it. I think that that's a button that you can push and then it sounds like the voice of God telling everybody in the breakout room, "You've got 2 minutes left." This is so strange. I should just shut it off. But there's a part of me that says, if I need to go and say, "There's been a fire," or whatever that level of emergency is, I can't imagine what it could be. But yeah, because but I'm going to leave it on just in case. Allow host to view activity status of participants. I love this. I don't know if you know this or use this feature. This is my absolute favorite feature to use in Zoom, especially when I'm with a group of people where facilitators say, I hate that we don't know how the conversation's going in the breakouts, right? So this feature, what that allows you to do is it shows you who's in the room, who's talking because their microphone goes up and down, who's muted, who has their screen off, who's sharing a screen. So you can look at all the breakout rooms and say, oh, wow, group one is really going at it. Like they're doing great. Oh, look, group two literally shut off everything and they took their own break. They're not even doing the work. Like they've just completely disconnected from each other. So you think to yourself, it's a little big brother, but if you are a facilitator that is used to facilitating in-person meetings, this is a wonderful tool. And it also helps you know if you got a chatty Kathy in the main group, are they chatty in the breakouts? Like, do you need to kind of be like, oh, so-and-so was paired with so-and-so? Let's make sure that the other person has an opportunity today to talk to. That's really getting into some facilitation. But again, this is a great tool if you're wondering, why would I need that? So if you're working with a facilitator or you are a facilitator, you absolutely want that. Select default breakout room behaviors. Ooh, I don't even know what that is. This feature is only available for, oh, that's a later version. Not worried about it. We're at 6.2 at this point. Remote support, again, I have it turned on, never use it. Manual captions, looks like I have everything turned on here. Yep. And I never use manual captions. That's when somebody's actually typing what's being said. I don't work with anybody that types that fast. We just use the regular voice, you know, the transcript, the automated transcript. So here's the automated captions. Yep, got them all checked. Allow only the following users to enable captions for the meeting or webinar. I'm going to click it just for a second. And honestly, I would just leave it off because I would let anybody enable the captions if they need it. That's important. I don't want to have to be turning, you know, having to give permission to do that. Full transcript, I allow that. I know as a tech host, I love it because I can have it going. And especially if I am, whether I'm tech hosting or not, if someone has a really thick accent that I have a hard time understanding, that's very helpful. And having the full transcript up is helpful if you get people saying, what did they say? Or can you remind me again? Now, here's the trick though, you have to turn it on because if you wait till someone says, what did they say? And then you turn it on, sometimes it only starts when you turned it on. So you can't go back. Unless they changed it. But the last time I tried, it was like, oops, you got to turn it on right away. Save captions, I allow that. Yep, so I allow anybody to do that. And then language interpretation, of course, if I have, so I was a part of a meeting where we brought in interpreters and you do have, well, at the time, and it might have changed, but you do have to connect how people are listening. If they're listening in English, but someone's speaking in Spanish, you have to connect those channels. I'm going to take a quick drink. I've been talking too much and now I need a cough drop. This is the instance where you always have a cough drop at your desk. It's my understanding that sign language interpretation view works very much like this language interpretation, but slightly different because of course there's different languages. But I just want to ask, has anyone used a sign language interpretation view in their meetings? I'm kind of sad about it, but also like I'm glad, you know, maybe we don't need it as much, but we do. And so I don't know, I turn it all on and then hope that if we do have a need for an interpreter, that I can find someone. So if anyone has a really good resource for sign language interpreters, I'd love to be able to add that as a resource at TechHost Academy. Same with language interpretation. I know that there's a lot of automated systems, that type of thing. But if anybody has used either of those, we could use some more great resources around that. Because it's not something fun that it's like you almost have to start from the beginning and doing the research. It'd be nice to see if people have used any of these. So again, far end camera control. Now, this is where, even though in some cases I could have remote control turned on, I would turn this off and leave this off so that I am protected by saying, oh, I don't have that feature. So again, I don't want to control someone else's camera. It might be in an instance where I have had a tech host from Tech Host Academy help someone who needed to turn that on because they were controlling their camera for a totally different reason. So again, know where to find that. You can just search camera control. Okay, auto accept far end camera control, that's locked by admin, so it's not even an option yet. And then meeting high definition video quality, that's turned on by admin, so we can't change that. I would suggest leaving that on. If for some reason you are having a bandwidth issue, you can turn it off, but honestly, if you have a bandwidth issue, you need to get better bandwidth if you are a tech host. I'll just leave it at that. Virtual background. Again, I don't use these very often because they create Zoom fatigue. But if for some reason, especially if I'm on my laptop in a totally different place, I need to have this on so that I can put in some kind of a virtual background. And once you are inside of Zoom, you can add your own custom virtual backgrounds. And for those of you who graduate from Tech Host Academy, if you want a background the same as mine with a little Tech Host logo up in the corner, you go through all of that, and I send you one, and you can upload it just like you upload them here. Immersive view. How many of you have used immersive view? Super fun. Do it with friends. Don't necessarily need to do it in a meeting. But what immersive view does is it takes everybody who's in the gallery and sits them in a location, like you're all sitting in an office or you're all sitting in a theater or something like that, and it puts all the people in these little places, and it's fun and it's cute. It's sort of like when we go in and we put on Zoom makeup or we put on hats and stuff like that. It's just kind of a fun thing to do. And then focus mode. Let's see. I don't have this turned on because this is funny. A mode that shows only host and co-host videos and profile pictures during a meeting. Okay, so this could be helpful, but at the same time, you can also just spotlight the people. And then, but the thing is that anyone can look at the gallery view, right? So this would just be where it's only the presenters. So you're kind of doing it in webinar format, but you still have the regular features of a meeting. I have this turned on because if I'm going to go into webinar mode, I'm just going to go full-fledged webinar mode. Identify guest participants in the meeting or webinar. It looks like, okay, participants who belong to your account can see that a guest who does not belong to your account is participating in it. Okay, participant list. Again, I'm not using the registration feature, so I'm not too worried about this. You can have yours on or off. Auto answer group in chat. Allow user to add others to an auto answer group. Calls from members of it. Okay. So again, I'm not using the chat beyond the meeting. And then in this case, calls from members of a user's auto answer group will automatically. Yeah, I'm not using any of the auto answer group features. Are any of you using that? Okay. Only show default email when sending email invites. I think I don't use that because when I send email invites, I'm usually just copying and pasting the link and sending it from a different place. So I think that's why that's unchecked. Now, if those of you who are sending invitations from actual Zoom, I don't know what the difference is if it says Zoom at the top or if it gives you your own email, but I have mine turned off. Did anybody have theirs turned on? Okay. Use HTML format email for Outlook plugin. I don't use Outlook, so I have mine checked off. You may use Outlook. Allow users to select stereo audio in their client settings. So yes, absolutely. I let folks do whatever they want with their own sound and their own video. Show a join from your browser link. Yeah, I definitely never want to do CAPTCHA just because I think it's another step. And I want people to be able to just click a link and join, that they don't have to download anything, that they don't have to whatever, just let them do it. And then show always join from browser option when joining from allow members to enable always join from browser. No, I want them to join from wherever they're clicking, like whatever they have it set up, not me requiring them to join through their browser. Allowing live stream of meetings. Absolutely. So I live stream meetings. I'm not allowing it. This is like me user allowing these platforms for me to do it, not just everybody. No, nobody else can go in and do that. Just the host can do that, I believe. So yeah, I've done Facebook. I haven't done Workplace from Meta. I've done YouTube. I haven't done Twitch, but I might want to. And then I just leave all of these on because I have live stream from Zoom, and that looks just like a Zoom, but then it pops open in some of these other platforms so other people can watch. Usually they don't have the same chat features, so they can't like talk or anything, but they can use the chat features that are on that platform if you have it set up. So sometimes you have to be looking at several chats at the same time. Show a custom disclaimer when starting or joining a meeting. You could do that. I don't have that just because I never, I have so many different audiences that I work with, but you could do that if you wanted to. Request a permission to unmute. I have that on there. However, it's not required. Let's see. It's funny. It's like people don't have to request to unmute because I allow them to do that in the meeting. So again, that's inside of that participant list. You can let them unmute themselves, even though this is turned on. And then enable stop incoming video feature. All right. So this is interesting. Allows meeting participants to turn off all incoming video feeds in their screen. To access this feature, click the view. That's fine. If they don't want to watch it, they don't have to. Save gallery view. I have found this to be pretty helpful, saving the once I order everybody. So if I am in a session where people have a secondary camera and I want them to be next to each other, I'll put them next to each other in the gallery view as a host. Also, I use that if I need to keep an eye on somebody because I know they're technically challenged and I want to make sure that I'm right there and ready for them. I'll move them in different places. You can save that so that when they come back, hopefully they're, if they turn off their camera, they don't go to a different screen. If they turn it back on, they'll come back kind of thing. I think they'd all stay in the same place though. Allow participants to sort their gallery view order during a meeting. So you can, unless someone is sharing a screen, then you can't. If someone's spotlighted, my experience has been you can't move them around once someone's spotlighted. Might be different for a user, but that's fine. Email notification, when cloud recording is available. I like to know when that's ready because I might be waiting for it in order to do the next step to get something out right away. And that's just, it tells me your cloud recording is ready and it just sends me an email. And I just have it, just this first one popped because I don't need the audio transcription and I don't use alternative hosts. When attendees join meeting before the host, that's what I was talking about before. I like to know when someone's already in there. And when a meeting is canceled. So that would be through the registration piece. So I don't use it, but I turn that on just in case. When an alternative host is set or removed from a meeting. Yeah, I don't use an alternative host, so that doesn't apply to me. If I did, I would have that checked. And then when someone scheduled a meeting for a host, that doesn't happen to me either. But you might work on a team where you do. When cloud recording is going to be permanently deleted from trash, I do have this turned on. And it says notify the host 7 days before it is, which is really great. I probably let Zoom throw away things way more often than I throw them away. I let them just automatically throw them away. And so, but I have that on because I might in my head say, oh, I'm going to go and look and see what it's deleting because I might not have downloaded it. It might have been like a personal thing or I don't know. I like to have alerts. I don't want something to go missing and then I don't know why. Maybe because I'm a control freak. Okay. Invitation email. So I have it set up for English. You might want to choose other languages. It's up to you. Schedule privilege. I don't use anybody else in my account, so I don't use any of this. Integration authentication. So this could be used when you are going live stream through, say, and now I forgot it, OBS. You might need that. So that's when you use it. So, That's been an hour and a half. This is, I believe, the longest page that we have in all of this. And there's several more. You'll see we're going to do recording next, but some of these are like 1 or 2 questions or just one page. So how many of you have been like, wow, we have had a lot of changes in Zoom just in the last couple of months?
Did you talk about the alternative host thing or?
I didn't talk a lot about it because I don't use an alternative host. But what's your question?
That's my question is, what is one?
Oh, gotcha.
Versus
Yes.
versus a co-host kind of thing.
Oh, no. So an alternative host is someone that you would add to your account that they would become a host so they can it's like adding someone to your team so they can set up meetings and things like that.
Gotcha.
The challenge with that I've experienced, because I had a friend, well, yeah, it was someone from Tech Host Academy who said someone made me an alternative host and it took over their account. So they no longer had access to their own account, but they were the alternative host for someone else's account. And then it was like, don't make me an alternative host. You know, it's great if you have a virtual assistant or an assistant where they're going to be the person that kind of runs the
Gotcha.
Zoom account like it was you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
need.
So as I'm going through these and I'm talking about all these alternative things, it's like, no, if you don't have someone that's helping you, do all the registration, all the meetings, all of those things, then you don't need any of that. It
Thank
doesn't really apply to us tech hosts very often, but it
Yeah.
can be a problem if someone thinks that they want to make you an alternative host. Say no. Just say no.
Easily done. Easily done. Thanks for
Unless you tell them, of course I can be an alternative host for $80,000 a year.
Mm-mm.
Right. Good. Well, welcome back, everyone. Let's dive back in. Unless you have any questions so far, I know this is grueling. I'd love to hear from you. What are some things that you've heard so far that you're like, I'm glad I actually know that now? Is there any key takeaways that have been helpful? Feel free to unmute. Please, someone say something. Thank you,
It's-
Karen.
It's not a specific, but more of the really having that deeper thought about who's my audience, who am I working with, and what are their needs within this. And then that's your guide for what you're choosing
Yeah.
as you go.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're inside of a meeting thinking, I should have thought of that. Right? We don't need experience after we actually need it. Okay. Let's get a little bit of some clues now. Yeah, this isn't fun work, but it's also like, yeah, but now you know. Or if you don't remember, you know where to look. And Zoom settings don't have to be 18 pages of scary text. Like, we can go in and look at these things. Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you said that. Thank you. Anyone else want to have anything to add? What did you take? What are any key takeaways? Yeah, Kathy.
Actually, the focus on phone users was very meaningful. And I wonder if that applies to, because I haven't done a lot of Zoom on tablet, but I realize that format is also different for people. It's
Yes.
telling me I need to pay a lot more attention to, back to the user experience. What limitations do they have? And I really hadn't thought so much about how we can
Yes. Thank
make
you for
more
saying that.
accessibility there. Yeah.
Yeah, we do need to be thinking about different users and how they come online, right? A lot of creative folks like to use their iPads and their tablets because they can bring them into their studios, right? Because they usually have desktops. They may not have laptops. Or- And so those tablets act very differently. Chances are they're not going to use the chat because the chat pops up in front of their screen and they have to type on it and it has to go away. And some iPad users don't have keyboards. So yes, thinking about phone, people on the phone are usually driving, honestly. Let's just be honest, or they're walking, right? So they're not even looking at who's in the room. So we have to think about those different kinds of users and how are these settings going to affect them. And those tablet users too, they get to see everything and they can easily mute and unmute, but anything beyond that, and it becomes a lot more work. And so be thinking about that as you're going through these settings. Thank you so much. So now we're on recording. And so record to computer files. Now, when do you record to the computer and when do you record to the cloud? My feeling is that I pay for the cloud, and my suggestion is to, if you're not paying for the cloud, go ahead. It's like, if you can expense it as a business expense, I think it's around $10 a month. It used to be much more expensive. And so I say check often because I think I overpaid for a few months before I realized, oh, they lowered the price because they changed some things around. So I suggest recording to the cloud. For the main reason of, if something were to happen and it's already in the cloud, like if that host can go back over to someone else, you don't have to worry, did this not get recorded? All those other reasons. But if for some reason you say, I'm going to have to download it anyway and upload it to something else, I can go ahead and record it to my computer, and then it's already there. So it's really up to you. But you do want to have, if you do both, just for different reasons, go ahead and have both of these checked on. I do save the chat messages. It's a secondary place that I can find the chat. If for some reason it doesn't put it on my desktop or in my downloads folder, I can always find it in the Zoom. And I do save the closed captions as a VTT file. Now, I will be honest, I have a different workflow for my, for what I use at Let's Letter Together. But if for some reason I have a client that says, no, we need the closed captions, we're going to embed them so that people can't even turn them on and off, they need that VTT file. That VTT file is like 3 kilobytes. It's tiny. So just go ahead and click that on if you think your clients will ever need that. Otherwise, it's just something that's nice to have. It's not something you can get it back by going and pushing the video through like Otter AI or something like that to get the closed captions, but it's just there. I just have it. At that point, I mean, if you need it, it's there. All right, advanced settings. Hosts can give meeting participants permission to record on their computer. Now, I don't allow that because sometimes I'm working with clients that have their own IP. But if you're like, nope, I'm fine with them recording on their own computer because I don't want to do it for them, then you can turn that on. I believe they can request if they can record, and then you can do that on the inside of Zoom, but I have it shut off here. So I do have my cloud recording on, Zoom meeting, and then look at these settings. These are the settings we really want to look at for that cloud settings. So record active speaker with a shared screen, absolutely. Record gallery view with a shared screen. So those are 2 different recordings. And I like that because in some instances where someone's talking for a really long time and we do want to see the whole gallery, I can plug that in post-production. So that becomes something totally different. Now, these will take up a lot more room on the cloud. However, if you're only doing a few of these a month, it's not a big deal. In some cases, you may need that gallery view. I don't know. So I leave those on, but I do not have checked active speaker, gallery view, and shared screen separately because that's a lot of production and I just don't need that. And again, that would triple the size of what it's taking in the cloud. So no, I don't do that. And then record audio only files. I could probably turn this off, but I have it turned on because I do have one client that asks me just to send the audio every single time. I don't know why. I don't know if they're just listening, but they want the audio files only. So I just have it turned on for me or for them. Record the interpretation. I have that turned on. Again, I don't use this yet, but when I do, I want to have that turned on, and then save chat messages from the meeting. So I'm not sure how that's different than what was up here about saving chat messages, but I have that turned on. So advanced, add a timestamp. I do not add the timestamp. I know that I think that's automatically on, but it's obnoxious. So I turn it off. I don't want that. I don't want my things to be dated and timed, and display participants' names in the recording. I have that shut off for security purposes. So I want that turned off as well. You may feel differently about it. You might need to make sure that everybody's held accountable for some reason and everybody needs their name in there. Record thumbnails when sharing. Yes, so that means that if right now, a few of you have your pictures or your cameras turned off, but your picture turned on, that picture is going to show up in the recording. We could probably turn that off. Actually, by turning that off, it would make it more secure for folks, but then I don't know if their name would show up. So not sure how that works. I actually don't include a lot of recordings that have a gallery view. I don't put that out there just because I'm sensitive to people's security. So I have that on, but again, I could shut it off. I could go either way. Love to hear if you have a strong opinion either way. Optimize the recording for third-party video editor? Absolutely. Kathy, did you have a strong feeling about recording? Okay. Create audio transcripts. So absolutely, I want those transcripts in there just in case I need them. They don't take up a lot of room. Save panelist chat to the recording. Yeah, that's for webinars, but yeah. Save poll results shared during the meeting or webinar. Absolutely. Now, I try to take screenshots to remember to take screenshots before that goes away, but I also like to be able to have those in case my client asks for them for whatever reason. Save closed captions. Yep, we talked about that. Participants can request host start cloud recording. So I don't need this anymore, I hope, but there was a time where I absolutely needed my people to tell me, are you recording this? Because I can't tell you how many classes I gave without recording because I just forgot. Participants can start cloud recording when host is not in the meeting. So no, they don't need to do that. I need to be there. I'll just say that. That might be for more people that are working in teams. Okay, so this is talking about smart recording with AI Companion. So it looks like that was moved and we already talked about those. Yeah, I'm not doing a lot with AI Companion right now. I'm using AI in other ways, but I'm not letting it be in control of my Zoom at this point. I am using some of the tools, but allow cloud recording sharing. So yes, I will tell you that you have to share the link, that it's not like anybody can just have it. So you've got to share that link and then they can go and watch those recordings. That's helpful again when I have something that I want people to have instant access to because I might not get to doing the post-production right away, and I'll just share that cloud link. And then automatic recording. I have that set up already. So I do have to go in before I send out my recordings to folks and cut off that first part where I'm like looking around to shut off the recording. And that's mainly because it again reminds me we are recording. I have to make an intentional effort. And if I forget, it's already on. So that automatic recording is helpful. I have it automatically to the cloud again. I don't want my computer to keep me from, like if something happens to my computer, to keep from the recording from happening. And that just means slowing down, whatever. And I usually just leave everything up there unless I need it. Otherwise, my computer would be full of videos. And then hosts can pause or stop auto recording of the cloud. Definitely want that as a feature. Okay, IP address access control. Allow cloud recording access from only specific IP address ranges. I'm not worried about that. I have that turned off. Again, I don't know. For me, I don't have certain IP address ranges that I need to keep from looking at anything. So yeah, it's just not something I'm concerned about. Require users to authenticate before viewing cloud recordings. Again, I'm not using registration, so I can't use this feature. I just want people to just see it if I give it to them. Set recording as on demand by default. Users must register before they can watch the recording. No, this is another thing. I also take I take the password off. A lot of times someone will say, here's the Zoom recording because it's so easy just to copy and paste it, but it comes with a password. And so I just make sure people don't even have to watch the password. I try to make it as easy as possible. If I'm giving them permission to look at it, why do I need to give them another hurdle to get there, right? Set recording as on demand. Yeah, we just did that. Okay, viewers can see the transcript. Absolutely. So just like if they were watching it live, I want them to be able to see it if it's in the recording. I want them to be able to see the chat. I think that's really helpful too. And then delete cloud recordings and transcripts after I put 30 days because I get billed for 30 days. Now, it's been a while since I filled up my cloud. I used to, when I was doing, 5 classes a month, I would fill up the cloud very, very quickly. And so I would change this date to maybe a week or 2 weeks. But usually I let people know if for some reason I'm doing a one-to-one and I'm recording it for them and I want it available, I'll let them have the ability to download. You can in most cases, I don't let anybody download because I don't want someone to pay for a class, download it, and then they're not supposed to have access. But if it's a one-to-one and I want them to have that content because they paid for that time with me, I will tell them that they have 7 days to download it. Even though I have this setting at 30, if for some reason I need to, wipe out and clean up my cloud account, I'm going to get rid of some of those one-to-ones. So that's just one of the ways that I operate. And then the host can delete cloud recordings. It's funny, I delete them all the time. The recordings cannot be deleted by the host and only, admin. So that's me too. So that must be if someone else is hosting, they can't delete that. Not an issue here and probably isn't for you. Recording notifications, Zoom clients. So play a voice prompt and I put no one. So that's where it says this session is being recorded. So I've turned that off. So it says ask host to confirm before starting a meeting. So yes, when you say, do you want this? This is where it's saying this is being recorded. And so all of you have to say, yes, I know, or I'm happy to leave. And I like that better than the voice prompt. I think the voice prompt is just kind of, I don't know, it's Big Brother sounding. Okay. Recording notifications, phone users. By default, phone users will hear one audio notification indicating that a recording has started. I think that's fine. They need to hear that. Require phone-only users to press 1 to consent. I don't want them to have to do that if they're driving. And multiple notifications for phone users. So let's see what that says in there. The audio notifications may play each time the recording starts or restarts, informing participants. No, they don't need to know. They knew when they dialed in, so I'm not too concerned. So any questions about recording? The rest of these should go fast. Look at that. Automatically sync Zoom calendar events information biodirectionally between Zoom and integrated calendars. So I am not using Zoom calendar in any way with any of my other calendars. So I keep those very separate. Some of you might want to integrate those. And if so, you want to turn this on and see how that works. Audio conferencing, show international numbers link in the invitation email. I don't do that, even though I have a lot of international clients, because everything that I'm teaching them is all video based. None of them are doing this on their phone. Now, if I were working in a company and we were a multinational company, and I would have this turned on. But I'll tell you, it just makes the email that much bigger. And I don't really utilize that. And you'll notice too, even in our own country, there's like all these different numbers you can call depending on your region. I usually just copy and paste the Zoom link, and then people on the phone can use that as well. They don't. I don't get any requests for people wanting phone numbers, but you might. Choose where most of the participants call into or from in the meeting. I have United States checked. I have the third party audio turned off. I think in the beginning it was more about a security thing that I didn't want them to have some other recording device. That's all. Um, Before it was more about IP. I think now it would be more about AI. I wouldn't want someone capturing my voice and using that for AI training or whatever without my permission. That's all. Mask phone numbers in the participant list. I do have that. It's funny though, because I haven't really noticed that. I haven't noticed that recently. I don't know if that's new, but usually I see the whole number. That's why I like to ask them if they'd like to change. And then global dial-in countries and regions. I don't have that set either. Okay, any questions there with auto conferencing? Zoom apps, quick launch button. Yes, so that's probably the link that's either under more or on your Zoom where it says apps. It's funny, once you share though, you don't see it. And so right now, unless I already had my music up or I had my timer up, I would have to stop sharing to find that. So even though that's clicked, I still can't see it. I'll put in a request to Zoom. Hey, why can't I see that? Take a quick screenshot to remind me. Allow users to enable developer mode on mobile clients. I'm not working with users that would need developer mode, so I have that unchecked. Here we get into whiteboard. And again, I don't use the whiteboard in Zoom. However, and I am going to turn off annotation because that annotation button keeps getting in my way. Is it still there? Oh, yeah, it's still there. That's funny. Maybe because I was sharing. I don't know. It shouldn't be there. All right, so I have all these turned on, but I don't use them often, or I don't use whiteboard unless someone really requests it and it's last minute. So I would leave these things on, except for I would make sure that, again, host only for sharing so that someone doesn't take over the screen and just start drawing everywhere. Same thing here. I'm saying anybody can initiate a new whiteboard. That's really helpful because I've had people go into breakout rooms and they just want to start a whiteboard. And I don't want to have to like give a permission or any of that. So I just say all participants. Allow commenters and viewers to facilitate in the meeting. Absolutely. That's fine. I'm okay with that. Out of meeting whiteboard, again, I'm not using it, but if they want to continue on, they can go for it. And then whiteboard collaboration. And that's, I believe that should be allow in-meeting collaboration on whiteboards. Grant temporary access to whiteboards shared in a meeting without needing persistent. Yeah, okay. So it just allows everybody to do it and they don't have to ask for permission from me. And again, I'm not using this feature very often at all. Whiteboard sharing defaults. So I'm writing that I'm the only person because I don't want there to be whiteboards out there without me knowing it. As far as accessing. So I just have myself there, but you all might have something different. Default advanced sharing settings. Again, anybody can access it. That's an invited user. And then I say within the same organization, just again as a, if they're collaborating, I guess I could leave it, I could change it to anyone with access, but no, it's not even letting me do it. It's already set to that. All right. Whiteboard retention, auto delete specified whiteboards. No, I'm not going to auto delete, but I'll go in and delete them if I see them and I don't need them. Notifications, because I wouldn't want to lose anybody's work. That's why. Email notifications. If you turn off email notifications, you won't receive. Okay, yeah. So here, I want these on because if somebody's making a whiteboard in my account for some reason around a class that I had, then I just like to see it and see what they're doing. And then other settings, again, allowing people to do it. These are all just turned on, which is good. Show disclaimer when creating or opening a whiteboard. Create your own disclaimer that will be shown. Now, this is a customized disclaimer. I don't even use them. I won't even have it. Everything else is checked on. Any questions there? Yeah, Karen. Nope. All right. All right, in-meeting notes. So these are about notes. Now, this is where I think Zoom is trying to be like Microsoft Teams, where people can communicate. So again, I have everything turned on here, but I'm not using any of this. Looks like auto delete I turned off. Again, I don't want to turn on, I don't want to throw away anybody's work, but just so you all know, unless you want to dive deep into notes, I don't use them at this time. I don't think I will because I'm not in a situation, but this is really great probably for small companies who have Zoom that want some of the features that Teams has but doesn't want to pay for it. Docs, same thing. This is like sharing docs, like Word docs and things like that. Again, I'm going to put, these are in meetings. So I definitely want people to be able to share it through the chat. So let's see, who can share when anybody else, I say just me, who can share when others are sharing. Yeah, if they're sharing documents in a meeting, that's fine, whether that's sharing on screen or sharing in the chat. Yep. Yep. And again, if anybody needs to drop off, I totally get it. I know I'm going to end before 12:30 because I have a 12:30 meeting. So, and again, access here, I'm going to leave all of these things on, but I'm not using them. And this is all new. Clips. So clips can be fun. It can also be like, why do I need all of this? So clips are great because I automatically allow Zoom to create those clips, those chapters that are a part of my recording, and then I can decide to do something with it. When I first saw it, I was like, ugh, I don't need any of this. And then I watched one and I was like, oh, that was pretty good. I should probably clip that out and use that in social media. So for me, it was more like oh, this kind of reminds me that could be a great feature if I used it. So of course I'm turning that on. I'm not allowing people to download things again because I don't want them to use it for other things, right? you don't want people stealing each other's work. So I don't let people download videos, that kind of thing, unless it's a one-to-one and I'm giving them explicit permission. Enable audio transcript on clip playback page. Absolutely. I want people to be able to see those transcripts. I want them to see any comments that are associated with them. And this again is just when I'm sharing the Zoom link for the video. Otherwise, they're never going to see any of this stuff. Sharing, shareable, link access default setting, clips and playlists. Yes, anyone with the link that I give it to, they can see it. I don't require the passcode. There's also another place inside of Zoom where you can change those settings. That's when you go to share. Display the shared clips and playlist thumbnail, title, and description, of course. This is actually so new. I think this is like new this week because I didn't even see this. This wasn't even an option a few weeks ago inside of the video. Email notification. Yes, I want to notify when the first person sees it because that tells me it's working, right? So that's helpful. And then new comments. Sure, you can have that checked. I don't know that I want to. This is actually new for me too. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that. Notify me or viewer when receiving a reply. Yeah, I probably keep that checked too. I'm probably not going to use this feature very often, so I'll keep them checked just in case. Notify me when mentioning me. All right, yes. Data retention, auto delete clips. Again, I don't let anything auto delete. These clips will actually, it says it'll stay in the trash for an additional 30 days. It'll actually get deleted with the video, but this isn't like making the clips go away at a different time. And then custom branding. Yeah, branding if I want to add my logo. I think that's a really nice feature. I hadn't seen the branding. That's new. Let's see if there's, this is it. We're almost done. Collect email addresses from respondents. So when they're signed into Zoom, their email will be pre-filled. So this is interesting because I think that only has to do with registration, but tell me if I'm wrong because, or maybe because they've signed into Zoom, but it's like their email will be pre-fill. Okay, that's if I want to collect who was in the room. Here's the thing. I already have everybody's email because I just invited them. If I did something totally free, I would probably make it a live stream on Facebook. So I can check this. And then it says, oh, no, I don't need this for quizzes and polls. That's getting kind of, the setting to require answers will be anonymous, won't be available. Okay, it's saying that it won't be available for those. So I still won't know who said that. Actually, I'll just keep this on if for some reason I need it in the future. But I can't imagine that I would. What I do need to note, I'm going to take a screenshot of this, is that where are they collecting that and who else has that information, right? Like I already have that information. Why does Zoom need that information? Yeah, let's go ahead and shut that off for now. Okay. All right. Any questions as we wrap up? I know that that was a lot. And so those of you watching the recording, thank you for your patience. Those of you who were in the room, way to go. Way to go. And I would love to know from you. How are you feeling? Go ahead. Go ahead and feel free to unmute. Yeah, Karen.
The middle one.
Yeah.
It's that and the one on the left. I'm scared.
Well, hopefully I held your hand enough to get you through this and it's not too bad. I mean, I can imagine why no one would be excited after this. It's great. You could go take a nap now. But it's like, at least now you don't have to go back and look. Like you feel like you swept under the bed, right?
Right.
Maybe.
Anyway, maybe. Maybe. Well, I'm always here to support. Reach out to me anytime. If you have any questions, I'm here. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. And I just thank you for those of you joining me live for sticking with me in Zoom settings. And if you ever have any suggestions on how I can make it better, I would love to know how. September Sandbox session. We're in that session right now, so it's recording. If I wanted to just give you the link and say you can watch this later without doing any post-production, I would click that share button. I'll click it now. This comes up. I can copy and send. Now, I'll show you, yeah, Then I'll show you some another meeting that we had recently. Let's make stickers. This was a class that I taught. Going back to the settings we just talked about, I have my speaker view, my gallery view, but not separate from my shared screen because I didn't want to do that. Audio only, transcript, and chat file. Now from any one of these, I can download them separately if I want and share them. I can use that same copy shareable link, or I can click share here. And here's where I think the special sauce is. If I go under share settings, then I can set an expiration date. That's how long they can look at it. I have that unchecked because I know it's going to delete in 30 days anyway, so that's not a differentiator. Viewers can download. Now, here is where if I am having a one-to-one with someone and I want them to have this video, I'll let them download. But if I'm sharing this out to a guild and they have 30 days to watch it, I am not going to let them download this because now they get to have it forever. If you buy a class and they have that checked, you just got that class forever if you wanted to download it. So I want them to see the transcript. I want them to see the chat. They don't need to be registered to watch it because I'm giving it to them. This is that passcode. I'm not giving them the passcode because I don't want them another hurdle. I'm just giving them that link. So these are all the different settings that you can save, and then you'll copy that and then paste that and give that to someone. Yeah, great question.